You can grab a Bible this morning. I'm going to instruct you in a few moments. We're not going to be in just one text, but you might want to have one with you to kind of open up to different places. Last week, Christy and I were at the inauguration of the new president at Northern Seminary, and I'm looking forward to our continued relationship with Northern Seminary, and we're going to be working with them in terms of the sabbatical that's coming up, and we're excited about partnering with them in a number of ways. The new president, though, is a Southerner like me, so he might be the first Northern Southern president that they've ever had. So, but he's a great guy. We're looking forward to spending time with him, and hopefully we can have him here sometime to share with you about what God's doing there. So it was nice to be there last week, but we are shifting this week back to our study of Proverbs. And we've been moving through the Proverbs chapter by chapter, and you might be saying, well, gosh, at this pace, we're never going to get through all 31 chapters. And you would be right. We would not get through all 31 chapters in this pace. I guess we could. It'd take us over a year to do that, but we're not going to be doing that. In fact, we're going to be kind of pulling this Proverbs series to a close here in the next few weeks. On November 20th, we're going to celebrate a Harvest Sunday together. That's a day when we have one service, and we all get to eat downstairs afterwards. It's a great day. But between now and then, we're going to be wrapping up our Proverbs series. And here's what we're going to do. Rather than kind of working through chapter by chapter, I've picked out 4 topics that are discussed in the Proverbs, 4 important topics. And we're going to look at each one of these topics and see what the Proverbs have to say about each of these topics. So today, we're going to be talking about our words. Proverbs has a lot to say about our words, our tongue, what comes out of our mouth. Next week, we're going to be looking at anger. Proverbs has a lot to say about controlling our emotions, our tempers, our anger. I'll talk about that next week. On November 6th, we're going to talk about money. And then on November the 13th, we're going to talk about friendship and relationships. So that's kind of where we're going in the next few weeks. We're going to see, we have seen already, that wisdom is crucial for our lives. And now we're going to see how wisdom plays out practically into these particular areas of our life. We're going to look at what Solomon has to say about our emotions, all right, about our words, about our friendships, about our finances. Again, the wisest man who ever lived. This is what he has to say about those things. Now, here we go this morning. We're going to be talking about our words. Now, we've talked about our words before. You might remember in 2014, we went through a study in the book of James. And James has a lot to say about our words, our tongues. But today we're going to be looking at what Solomon has to say. Now, let me encourage you this morning, if you want to have a Bible and flip to a different passage, you can do that. We're going to be in Proverbs, but I'm not going to expect you to do that. I'm going to rather put the words on the screen this morning because we're going to be in so many different places. But let me encourage you, if you have a pencil or a pen this morning, to find one. There's some small, mini golf pencils in the pew in front of you. Grab one of those. Maybe grab your bulletin. And I would encourage you, if you see a verse this morning that you read on the screen and it somehow speaks to your heart, and you say, wow, that's a powerful verse. I'd like to remember that. Let me encourage you to maybe just jot that down. Proverbs, whatever, 1, 2, or whatever. Write that down, and then when you get home, take that verse, write it on an index card, or someplace, some public place, maybe a chalkboard in your office or somewhere like that, and put it up where you can read it every day, and let that get into you. I think you'll find some of these verses pretty important this morning. This morning, we're going to be talking about words. And now, words are something that we use every day. Have you ever thought about the fact that we are different from every other creature in the animal kingdom, right? Why are we different? We're different because we can speak. We speak words. Now, our dog can communicate with us. You probably have pets that communicate with you, right? Every time we sit down to eat, she knows, or every time you open up a can of tuna, she finds her way into the kitchen, and she begins to communicate with us that she would like for us to give her some of that, right? And she tries really hard sometimes, but she cannot speak. Words cannot come out of her mouth. But when God made you and me, the Bible tells us that we are created in His image, and we know that God speaks and we speak. We, in the image of God, are able to use words. And as God uses words for powerful sorts of things, we too have power in our words. And we're going to look at that this morning. We use words every day. One researcher says that the average American speaks about 700 words per day. Now, I'm speaking 3,000 words in the sermon this morning, so I'm way overdoing it, right? You might say, I don't know if I speak 700 words a day, and there may be others of you that say, I speak 700 words before breakfast, right? That's how some of us are. But words abound, don't they, in our culture today? And you know, when we read Proverbs, we talk about our lips or our tongues. But I think in today's world, we can talk about our keyboards and our cell phones, right? Words make their way often into text messages, into social media posts, into email. So words are all around us. And in America, we have this thing called free speech, right? In other words, we can say whatever we want to say and not get arrested, right? But don't be fooled, because we can't say whatever we want to say without doing damage or harm, right? We're going to learn more about that today. The Bible has a lot to say about words. And as I mentioned earlier, James is very specific about the power of our words. But Proverbs has a lot to say about words. Now, Proverbs, as I've told you earlier, is kind of divided. The first 9 chapters of Proverbs are these poems about wisdom. And so you hear about wisdom. And then when you get to chapters 10 through 31, that's the actual Proverbs themselves. And the Proverbs themselves are not really structured, okay? They're kind of disorderly. In fact, one scholar says this about the Proverbs. They jump from one topic to another like scatterbrains in a living room conversation. So it's not that I can say turn to Proverbs 18, because that talks about words. It's just they're all over the place. One scholar says that there are as many as 90 different proverbs that have to do with our words. And if this is the case, words are the most important, or at least the most discussed topic in the book of Proverbs. So Solomon has more to say about words than any other topic. He has more to say about words than money. He has more to say about words than sex. He has more to say about words than friendships. Solomon has a lot to say about our words. Now, if we think about it, our words are more than puffs of air passing over our vocal cords, okay? Words have extreme power. Look at this verse. This is Proverbs chapter 20, verse 15. It says this: gold there is, and rubies in abundance, but lips that speak knowledge are a rare jewel. I like that one, don't you? I mean, we have words everywhere, right? I mean, perhaps we are more exposed to words even than people in Solomon's day, right? You can't drive from here across town without seeing words all over billboards, right? Hearing words on the radio, hearing words everywhere. But what does Solomon say? Words that speak knowledge, that have value, are extremely rare. 700 words a day per person, okay, if that is true. But the ones that really matter, the ones that really count, are very, very rare. I was sitting in a coffee shop when I was typing this sermon, and I'm typing about words, right? I'm using words to type about words. And I'm sitting in the coffee shop, and I hear words all around me. So I just paused for a moment, and I just listened. Some of the words that I heard were pleasantries. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. You know, that kind of thing. I heard others speaking in hushed tones, in a very serious sort of way. I didn't know exactly what they were talking about, but it seemed like something very personal. At one table, there were about 4 or 5 people sitting around, and I don't know what the person in the one chair was, but everybody else was sitting on the edge of their seat listening to this one person speak. He must have been somebody very important, right? Because they were all kind of perched up and listening to whatever came out of his mouth. You see words flying all over the place, but the ones that really mean something, the ones with knowledge, Solomon says, they are rare. Think about that for a moment. We hear the phrase blowing smoke, right? Words just everywhere. Maybe it's a sales pitch, you know, that you hear and you're suspicious the whole time you're listening to the sales pitch. Maybe it's someone talking about something that they really don't know that much about, but they're pretending to know a lot about. Words are all over the place, but again, words of knowledge are rare. Look at this verse. This is another verse about words, Proverbs 12:22. It says, "The Lord detests lying lips, but He delights in people who are trustworthy. What does that say about words? It says that words are either good or bad, right? That words have moral value, that God cares about our words, right? That what we say can be pleasing to God, or what we say can be detestable to God. Words are rarely neutral. God cares about what we say. They're either good or bad. Look what Proverbs 31 says here about our words. He says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and needy." So not only do our words have moral value, they either delight God or God detests our words, but we can also use our words to be on mission for God, right? We can speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. We can use our words to defend the poor and needy. Our words matter to God. So words that contain knowledge are rare. Words can contain lies. Words can be used to defend the poor. Think about that. We're seeing a lot being said about our words, right? We don't often give that much attention to what we say. Many of us just talk without even thinking about what we're saying. But what we say, our words, Solomon says, are crucial to our lives. What does God think about the words that you speak every day? Are they words of knowledge and truth? Are they delightful to God? Are they detestable to God? Are we using our words to defend those who cannot defend themselves? Think about that for a moment. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. This might be my favorite verse about words. "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." That's a powerful statement, isn't it? The tongue has the power of life and death. One lady in Los Angeles committed suicide, and she left a suicide note, and it simply read this: "They said." Isn't that tragic? For her, the words of those around her were words of death. They hurt her so bad that she felt like she needed to take her own life. They said. Words destroyed her. Look at what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 12. "But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken." Jesus understands this. Words have the power to destroy. Solomon describes words as being like swords. Look at Proverbs 12:18. "The words of the reckless pierce like swords." Swords are instruments of death. You've heard the phrase, haven't you? Cutting words. That's what we mean by that, right? Words that can pierce, words that can destroy, words that can do extensive damage. You see, words can leave scars that will last long after the sound has left the air, right? We understand that. Words can mean death. But we also know that words can mean life. That's the other side of it. Solomon describes here in verse 18, "But the tongue of the wise brings healing." So words can cut. Words can be like a sword. They can destroy. But words can also heal. 3 words that might be the most healing words you can speak are, "I am sorry." I'm sorry. You ever had someone say that to you? Those words heal, don't they? Those words restore. Those words build back into a relationship that's perhaps been broken. Maybe there are other words that need to be spoken that can bring healing, but wise words can heal even the deepest wounds. Do you see the power of words? Words can bring death. Words can bring life. Words can heal. Words can restore. Look at this verse here in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25. It reads, "Anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up." That's a great one, isn't it? That might be one you want to put on an index card, right? And put it somewhere because, you see, our world is full of anxiety, isn't it? Fear and uncertainty really rule our day. But a kind word can conquer anxiety. A kind word. You can say something to someone and it can change the whole atmosphere. Healing anxiety. Healing. Think about that word. Words can heal. That's like medicine. When you take a disease or an ailment and you put medicine into the mix, the disease begins to go away, right? The wounds begin to heal. That's the kind of power that our words have. Our words are like medicine. A few months ago, our family had a chance to go over and spend an evening with Carl Erskine. I don't know if you all know who Carl Erskine is, but Carl was a pitcher for the Dodgers back in the 50s, for the Brooklyn Dodgers, the other Dodger team, right? And Carl shared a story with us that evening, and I'll never forget this. And Carl will be 90 years old this year. And he was telling us about playing the baseball game at Muncie Central. And after the game was over, the Muncie Central coach, he played for Anderson, the Muncie Central coach pulled him to the side. He said, kind of pulled him behind the bleachers a little bit and said, hey, I want to talk to you. And he went back there and he said, you're a good ball player. He said, don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't play baseball because of your size. And Carl said he was a little shorter than all the other kids. And here he is, some 75 years later, recounting that story. Those words meant something to him. I wonder how many times he felt like he couldn't make it. He felt like he was too small. And he heard the words of that opposing team's coach in his ear. Words have power. Words can stick with us through a lifetime. Our world is full of people who need to hear a kind word. Kids sitting at the lunch table by themselves. Maybe God would be prompting you to go and say something to someone who's hurting. A kind word. How's your day been? You know what? I really do like that coat you're wearing, or something like that. Just a kind word can do so much for someone. Maybe God will be prompting you, even this morning, through His Word, to speak kind words to someone. Remember, I'll put this back up here, Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. What a beautiful, powerful verse. Look at a few other passages this morning. I'm just going to put these up here on the screen. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. And then just a few verses later, in verse 21, the lips of the righteous nourish many, but fools die for a lack of sense. Nourish. That word nourish. Think about that for a moment. That's a word in Hebrew that's often used to speak of a shepherd taking care of sheep. Think about that for a moment. What does a shepherd do for his sheep? A shepherd feeds them and protects them and cares for them and guards them and watches after them. That word nourish contains all of those elements inside of it. And we're told here that words can nourish. They can protect. They can guide. What will sheep do if they have no shepherd? They'll die, right? They will not survive. Words have the power to nourish. Let's keep reading here. There's a lot to be said about words, and words are a good thing. We've talked about words. Maybe even as we're sitting here opening God's Word together this morning, you're thinking about ways in which you could take your words and use them in positive ways. And I want to kind of approach this from another angle this morning, because I think often words can be cheap, right? Words can be empty. Words can be hollow. And you know, if you sit down and you say something to someone, even though it might be kind, but it's empty, right? It doesn't really mean that much. And look at what Solomon says here in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23. He says this, all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Now, he's speaking in economic terms here, okay? But I think there's more here that we can pull from this. And again, he's speaking in terms of economics. He says, you know, you work hard, you're going to make a living, you're going to have enough supplies to take care of yourself. But if all you do is talk about working and you really don't work, you're going to be in poverty. So again, the economic sense, but think about this phrase here for a moment. Mere talk. What is mere talk? Mere talk is a word without action, right? And mere talk leads to poverty, but mere talk can also be something that is a way in which we use our words that there's no action behind our words. It means very little at that point. Proverbs 3:13 says this, "Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin." That's another good one, isn't it? Be careful. Don't just let whatever hits your brain come out of your mouth. You know, that's not how you want to be. Now, you want to be honest in what you say. You want to be helpful. You want to be sincere. But you also want to be careful about what you say. We need God to guide our words. Our words, again, can bring life or death. They're power. Think about what you say. Our words are not neutral. They matter to God. They either delight God or God detests our words. We've got to be careful that our words will not be empty words, not mere talk, but will have action behind them. They'll have substance and honest and not empty sorts of words. Now, that's a lot, isn't it, to think about this morning? And as we consider our words, let me review just a minute here before we kind of dive into this last piece. Our words matter to God. They either delight God or they're detested by God. They've got power. They can be either swords or healing agents. They bring life or death. Again, our words must be backed with action. We got to be careful that our words are not fake. We don't want our words to be fake. Have you ever seen someone and they just have a smile face on them and they say some really nice things to you, but you know that as soon as you walk out of the room, they're going to say something really bad about you? You might know people like that, right? That's not how you want to use your words, right? They need to be honest. What do wise words look like? Here's a few descriptions, I think, of wise words. And each of these, again, I love Proverbs because wisdom is not this just one thing. It's just a multifaceted thing. It's like a gem or like a diamond. It has different angles. You can look at it and see different things. And we learn different things about it. And Solomon not only tells us that our words have power, but he describes what wise words look like from different angles. And these are some characteristics of wise words. Again, I think we could write some of these things down and let them kind of work their way into our souls. First of all, wise words are not boastful. Look at Proverbs 27, verses 1 and 2. "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Let someone else praise you, and not your own mouth, an outsider, and not your own lips." That's powerful, isn't it? I like that one. And you know, in Solomon's day, they didn't have social media, okay? So I think this would be phrased a little bit different. I think it would say this in today's world: "Let someone else praise you and not your own keyboard or cell phone. An outsider and not your own keyboard or cell phone." Think about this for a minute. We live in a world today where everybody has a Facebook page. And on their Facebook page, they brag about themselves, right? They tell you what they had for dinner, where they went on vacation. They tell you what their kids are doing. And I'm guilty of this. I admit it, right? Because you know, you have things in your life that you're happy about and you share them. But we've got to be careful, don't we? That it's not just a place where we can boast about everything that we're great at. Maybe let somebody else say something nice about you. Let somebody else put you in their feed, right? Instead of making Facebook your own sort of thing. I think there's wisdom in this verse here. A second characteristic of our words, or of wise words, that they're restrained. Look at Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. "Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues." Wise people, prudent people, hold their tongues. Look at Proverbs 17:14. "Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out." Another good one. Proverbs 17:27. "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered." And perhaps my favorite, Proverbs 17:28. "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." I love that one. People will think you're pretty smart if you'll just be quiet, right? But if you open your mouth, they'll know that you're not, right? They'll know that you're not wise. I love that verse. That's a good one. maybe you should talk less. Maybe we should take that 700 down to about 500 and we'd be in much better shape, right? Let's keep looking at this here. The third characteristic is that wise words are not gossip. Look at Proverbs 11, 12, and 13. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue. A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. Think about that for a moment. We love to share negative news, don't we? As soon as negative news hits our information, we like to broadcast it, right? But maybe we should think about who's it going to hurt if we do that? Maybe it's better that I just let their news be their news. Maybe it's better, and again, this is contrary to human nature, because I guarantee you, say something that's juicy, right? That's interesting, that makes someone else look like, wow, how could they do that? We want to broadcast that to the world. But Proverbs says, you know what? A wise person can keep it secret. They can hold it back. And if we're hurting our neighbor, we're hurting someone when we do that, we're not being wise. We're spreading gossip. We're not helping someone. Two more characteristics I'd like to mention this morning. Proverbs 15, verse 2 says this: the tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. Remember that word gushes there. And then look at Proverbs 15, verse 28. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. There's the word gushes twice there in two different verses. Gushes in contrast to careful attention. You see, the wise think about what they're going to say. The wise, you've heard people say, I have no filter, right? I say whatever comes into my brain. Well, that's not wise. Maybe God made you that way on some level, but it's just a lack of discipline to be that way. It really is. Because wise people get a filter. Okay? They think about what they're going to say. They realize that their words have immense power for life or for death. And what they're going to say can either hurt and destroy and tear down, or it can build up and heal. And so we put a filter on. And if we're just gushing words, we're fooled. That's what Proverbs tells us. We have to stop and think about what we're going to say. Wise people are thoughtful. Wise people weigh the consequences of their words. A final characteristic of wise words is that they are honest words. Certainly as we weigh our words, we don't gush out whatever we think, but we also don't make stuff up. We don't just say stuff that's not true. We read this verse earlier, but Proverbs 12:22, the Lord detests lying lips, but He delights in people who are trustworthy. May what we say be true. May people look at us and say, well, if they said it, I know it's true. That person doesn't. And you've heard other people say, well, I don't know, They said this, but I don't know if it's true, right? May they never use your name there, right? Because may they say, if he says this or if she says this, I know that is trustworthy. Wow, what a topic, right? Lots of good stuff in here. How might God be speaking to us today through His Word? How might He be prompting us to action? Maybe for some of us this morning, God would make us aware that our words matter and what we say makes a difference and that God cares about what we say. Maybe we've realized, some of us, that our words have been destructive, have destroyed people, have spread negative news, maybe gossip, criticism, maybe making fun of someone. Let me encourage you this morning, as God would be speaking to you, maybe you need to confess this morning, God, what I've said has hurt somebody. And maybe you need to go repair that relationship. Maybe there's someone you need to say to this morning, I am sorry for what I've said. I realize that my words have hurt you. I realize that my criticism has hurt you. Will you forgive me for that? And maybe that's what you need to do this morning. Maybe God would be calling some of us this morning to be more careful with our words, to realize we're walking around with a life or death tool in our mouth, okay? And every day to think about how we're going to use it. Is there someone I can speak kind words to and lift them up and help them when they're hurting? Can I be medicine? And to be careful that I'm not using this thing in my mouth like a sword, cutting people apart and hurting people along the way. So maybe God would be saying this morning, you say you have no filter, you need a filter. And maybe this morning you call on God to say, God, help me have a filter. Help me have a wisdom filter to know that what I say, and again, I think words are more than just what comes out of here. I think it's what's on here too, especially in our world today, or here. Here or here, because our words are flying around every day with text messages and emails and social media posts. And I think we need to think about those words too. We're going to watch a video this morning that challenges us, and we're going to have a different kind of response this morning. So let me invite you to watch this video together, and then Cliff's going to lead us in a response.